Hello and welcome to Journalism 190, Introduction to Mass Media. I am Brad Howard and I will be your instructor for the next 9 weeks. This first screencast is simply an introduction to the course, give you some idea of what to expect for the next 9 weeks, and what we'll be talking about is American journalism. We'll be taking a look at the way in which the U.S. news media functions or fails to function. And we'll be looking at it in the context of a firm belief that good journalism is the lifeblood of a democratic society. Studies of contemporary journalism find that rather than promoting democratic values, journalism undermines them. Rather than promoting active citizenship, journalism produces apathy and quiescence. And rather than empowering citizens, it makes them feel powerless in the face of social problems. The central questions of this course are: how did journalism come to be an obstacle to democracy, and what can be done to make journalism function as a tool to enhance our democratic institutions rather than undermining them? My objectives for this course, that is what I want you to take away from this course by the end of it. You should be able to define key terms, including hegemony, neoliberalism, the buying mood, dogmatism, framing, agenda setting, discourse, cultural construction, political economy, and textual silence. You should be able to identify critical junctures in the development of media policies. You should be able to explain the relationship between the production of the news text and the content of the text. You should be able to detect bias in the news, infer the causes of that bias, and predict the consequences of that bias. You should be able to identify examples of hegemonic messages in the media, produce counter-hegemonic readings of news text. You should be able to identify and describe news frames. You should be able to construct alternative versions of news stories. And finally, you should be able to identify and classify textual silences. How are we going to do that? Some of you might never have taken an online course before, so you're wondering how we're going to deliver material. This is a fully online course. We will not be meeting in the classroom. The delivery methods will be a mix of the familiar and, for some of you, maybe some new approaches. The most familiar forms, of course, will be readings. We will have a traditional textbook, Robert McChesney's The Problem of the Media, U.S. Communication Politics in the 21st Century. This is an inexpensive paperback that you should be able to order through your local bookseller if you are not in town and can't get to the bookstore, or you can find used copies of it online through Amazon, and the readings will include scholarly articles. Some of you have probably read some scholarly articles when you've written research papers for other classes. If not, well, these might be something new to you. Scholarly articles can be a little bit difficult. Hopefully the screencast associated with those articles will help to enhance your understanding of those articles. If not, we'll take your questions to the discussion board and make sure we answer them and clarify those articles for you. We'll read some newspaper articles, especially in the context of your assignments. We'll read some magazine articles. Frankly, the best journalism is happening in small independent magazines right now, and I've included at least one of those readings on your syllabus. We'll look at some online journalism, and I'll point you to some of my favorite websites for online journalism. We'll use videos. Instead of showing them in class, though, you'll be finding them either online or at your local video store. Many of these are things that you should be able to find at places like Film is Truth if you're in Bellingham. But we also have links for versions of them online. The corporation is available on YouTube in pieces. That is, you can watch the entire film in multiple parts on YouTube. You can probably stream it on Hulu for those of you who use Hulu. It's also available through Netflix. Many of you probably have Netflix accounts. We'll take a look at a documentary on Fox News called Outfoxed. We'll look at a documentary by Gene Kilborn, the leading critic of sexist advertising in the media. We'll take a look at a documentary on Frontline called The Persuaders. We'll be talking about advertising in the context of the political economy of the news media. It plays a central role in determining the content of the news and its role as the source of funding, the source of profits for the mainstream media. I'll be using screencasts like this in order to deliver information to you on the various reading and viewing assignments. We'll use chat at times to talk about those assignments as a group, and sometimes we'll talk about your assignments individually in chat. Some of you might have used wikis before. We'll be using wikis. You'll notice when you look at the graphic syllabus on Blackboard that you have 2 group wiki assignments this quarter. And we'll use discussion boards, which can be a very efficient way to achieve the equivalent of a classroom discussion. It is a great place for you to not only ask me questions, but to pose questions to your classmates and learn from each other at the same time that you're learning from the readings and hopefully learning a little bit from me. The assignments are for the most part low consequence, in the sense that no one assignment is worth more than 10% of your grade. The quizzes will equal a total of 10%. They'll be entirely online, as will the midterm and the final. You'll take the quizzes, the midterm, and the final on Blackboard. Those of you who've worked with Blackboard know that it can occasionally have some glitches. Don't worry about those glitches. I can fix those for you. You won't be penalized for any of the technical problems associated with Blackboard. If I can't fix the problem, we'll send it on to tech support and we'll get your problem fixed so that you can finish your quiz or your exam. So if Blackboard gives you problems, please don't stress about those problems. We'll fix those for you. We'll be using the wiki function on Blackboard in conjunction with the group functions in Blackboard. So your group assignment will be a collaborative effort that will work within the wikis on Blackboard. You can, as part of that group assignment, use the discussion boards to talk amongst yourselves as you're putting your wikis together. I'll ask you to do a visualization exercise around the concept of hegemony, putting together some images and a presentation that will demonstrate your understanding of the concept. I'll ask you to grade the news. I'll ask you to evaluate the content of news stories in order to evaluate and enhance your ability to analyze news stories. A key outcome of this course is an ability to accurately evaluate the content of a news story. We'll use concept mapping to explore the concept of framing, a fairly complex theoretical idea that concept mapping is ideally suited to help you explore and to help you make a little bit more concrete, perhaps, a somewhat abstract concept. We'll use a timeline exercise to explore those critical junctures that I mentioned earlier. And finally, there'll be a buying mood exercise that will help you to better understand the nature of the political economy of the mainstream media and one of the ways in which advertising affects the content that we see or that we don't see in the news media. If you need to communicate with me, it is not too difficult in the online environment. Most of you are accustomed to communicating with your professors via email. My email on campus is bradley.howard@wwu.edu. And if you would please copy any email that you send to that address to me at freepress@clearwire.net. That should be an easy address to remember in the context of this course, freepress@clearwire.net. Please, when you communicate with me by email, begin the subject line with JOUR 190. JOUR in all caps, no space between the R and the 1. This will ensure that it dumps into the correct folder when it hits my campus email and that I can sift it out of the abundance of email I receive when I open up my Free Press account. I'll be able to simply search for JOUR 190 and any emails from this course will move to the top. I want to be able to prioritize your communication. Do remember that there are 65 of you, and email is not always the most efficient way to communicate. If you have a question about the material, if you have a question about the assignments, posting that question to the discussion boards instead of putting it in an email to me makes the answer to the question available to the entire class. That way everybody benefits and I don't have to answer 65 different emails with the same question. If you have a question of a private nature, email is fine, and if email doesn't seem to answer your question easily or readily, we should probably move into the chat. And chat allows enough back and forth for us to make sure that I understand your question and that you understand my answer to your question. So if you want to use chat, use your Google account. If you don't have one, set up a Google account and we can chat in the Gmail window, or I can help you figure out if your question's about an assignment. You can move your assignment into Google Documents, and we can chat in Google Documents while we're both looking at the document. That's a very efficient way to communicate about your particular assignments, especially after I've evaluated them. If you have questions about how you can improve your performance as you move through the course. So that's how to communicate with me, and I look forward to communicating with you regularly over the next 9 weeks. I'll be communicating with you at least 3 times a week via screencast and sometimes more. So I'll be sending out notices each time a new one is available. Once again, welcome to Journalism 190. This is the Introduction to Mass Media.